Hello and welcome to Optional Rule. My name is Scott. I am the weekly host of this show. It's a discussion show for D&D, game design, game theory, preparing for my campaign, all of the things that you do to worry about games and actual play. And I talk about the nitty gritty of what I've had happen in the previous week, what I've got coming up in the next week, as an example of game design, considerations for DMs, and how to run your game in D&D, in hopes that you will get out and you will run a great game of D&D. This is a great hobby. I've been doing it for almost 40 years. I'm sorry, I'm overmodulating a little bit. And I just hope you'll find a lot of pleasure in this hobby as well. And something useful in this stream. I hope you will take a moment to say hello down in the chat. Go ahead and just drop it down in the chat right now. If you're seeing this later in the archive in YouTube or on Twitch, you can comment over on YouTube. Just go ahead and drop a hello or a comment there. Give it a thumbs up, like, subscribe, all of those social media things. And go ahead and give me a follow on Twitter. I am Optional Rule on Twitter. I am pretty active there. I try to engage people in actual conversation. So feel free to drop a note and do all of those things there. So I was off last week. We've had a couple of interruptions in our sessions and some family stuff going on, so I apologize for that. I do stream regularly here at noon on Saturdays, every Saturday, except last Saturday. I think I missed one other Saturday other than that, but it's been pretty regular for the past 6 months, and I'm really enjoying it. So what are we going to talk about today? Well, today we're going to talk a little bit about what happened during last session, which is a great highlight to game balance and how you want to respect players' choices as well as sort of let the game unfold in front of you. It was a really important lesson last session. I'll get into what the elements of that were, but it's really, to me, our last session was an important example of why you should not intervene, or at least try to resist intervening as a game master, even with good intentions, because when you do that, sometimes you're not allowing for these other magical things to happen that might have happened otherwise. And I'll explain a little bit in a minute about how that played out. Some advice for you in your sessions on how to sort of let things, what might seem like bad things, happen to allow for good things to sort of evolve out of that. I'll talk a little bit about the exploration pillar today. I have an exploration session, I think, coming up this next session. Talk a little bit about how to design that and how to make it a rich experience for players, and talk a little bit about how I'm going to try to point towards the end of this Rime of the Frostmaiden campaign that I started back in September of last year, and what's sort of going on there. So that's what I'm going to talk about. If you have any observations of your own, if you have any thoughts, if you have any questions related to your game or anything related to D&D or tabletop role-playing games, go ahead and drop them down in the chat. I'm happy to discuss them live on air. Really, it's free form. I do this every week as a way to think through my own games. Hopefully, it's thinking through your games as well. So, yeah, let's start. Let's just start with where we are. So what I have is I have a Rime of the Frostmaiden campaign. I was running a module, if you're familiar with the module at all. By the way, spoilers for Rime of the Frostmaiden. If you're one of my players, you can go ahead and duck on out of here. I would say by the time this airs, anything about 2 weeks ago, actually, you can watch any of the previous sessions to this up to about 2 weeks ago. Because I've run through all of the material, which will make this an interesting design scenario, because I got nothing from here. So let me talk about I'll talk about where I'm heading in a second, but let's start with sort of some of the lessons about intervening in player behavior. So what I have is I'm running a scenario called the Black Cabin. I added quite a bit to that scenario. Matter of fact, I had probably 2/3 of the sessions we had. The material from that were completely added by me. In the module, you have this Black Cabin you go up to. You recover this magical device that kills the players, and it makes them might kill the players, make them hang around the spirit world, and then you have a Deus Ex Machina thing where somebody shows up and helps you forge the solution for this magical device. No, I didn't like that, so I wanted to I like when I design an adventure. So here, first bit of advice. Let's start with that. I like to lay out on a table, metaphorical table, in front of the players, the tools that they need to solve the adventure. Now, it might not be apparent that something is a tool. They're aggregating disconnected pieces of information, but generally my style of game mastering is eventually they're going to intersect somewhere in the game that they can find out why something happened or why it's useful, or think back on, can I use this device and move the plot forward. That's what I like to do. So instead of just sort of leaving things up to Deus Ex Machina, I instead created this separate NPC that lives in a gorge by the cabin. That's a Verbig Jarl. That's a sort of I harken back to Skyrim. So there's this giant that lives down there that hunts many things, including sentient humanoids, for sport, and was going to hunt the players too. They had captured an NPC that will be vital to the players uncovering that plot. I'm not going to get into that because I've done it in previous streams, but that was instead of me just having a random NPC wander along later that can solve the players' problems, I wanted to seed with the players that they had an NPC that they knew had information about this quest they were on that had been captured by this Jarl and was down in their gorge. And so they ran through an escape scenario, which was great. Got this NPC dwarf, went through the rest of it, and they were getting ready to leave, and they wanted to not mess with this Jarl, which was good, but it ended up being a chase scenario using the mounted combat rules that I posted a couple weeks ago. You can go ahead and check them out on optionalrule.com. I think they worked out pretty well in my session, so at least my minor playtesting, it worked out very well. So they ended up having an entire session worth of a fight, and man, was it an epic fight. They were fighting a mounted Verbig, so a giant mounted on a woolly rhinoceros that was chasing them and had a hammer it could throw and it would return to its hand. And it just played out in this really epic fashion. I almost had a total party kill. And this is where the letting things unfold as they do in the game and not intervening too much as a DM, the lesson came from. I literally had everything down to one shot on the players. Now, I don't recommend that. I had this, when a game master gets into this scenario where the players, you're about to have a TPK, unless you can point to something like epically stupid that the characters did, that's kind of on you, right? You don't want to, I did not intend to balance things so closely that the players were on the edge of death. And I was experiencing this, oh boy, do I kill the players because I basically created too tough an encounter. Now, it's not there are things the players could have done to make this a bit of a more balanced fight in their realm. I gave them plenty of notice that they were going to be chased. I think I gave them plenty of information beforehand that they were probably not going to be able to outrun this creature, but maybe not. And I had foreshadowed that this hunter had eagle companions and wargs and bunches of other things like that. And so I imagine the players could have done a few things like obscured their tracks and tried to deceive it to get away, which might have worked. They didn't do that. They might have tried to lay an ambush for him and take the fight on their terms. Also might have worked. Didn't do that. They basically just tried to run, and there was no way they really could outrun this Jarl for two reasons. One, his mount was faster, but two, this is his home turf, right? He knows this territory. The other players do not, so he had advantage in navigating to where the players were going to be. Plus, he had an eagle. They didn't know this, but they had an eagle in the sky that could spot them, and he had a telepathic link to the eagle. So, matter of fact, I still don't think they know that the eagle and the giant had a telepathic link. But anyway, so that was the culmination of this. The players choosing to run, it wasn't stupidity. Maybe it wasn't the most optimized decision, but I don't want to create a game where do the most optimized thing or you die. So I was really faced as a GM with, what do I do? All of the course of the entire 3-hour game. It's a 3-hour fight, which does not just sound appealing, but honestly was one of the best sessions we've ever had, because there was so much ebb and flow in this combat that it was easily and it was all theater of the mind too. So a couple learned lessons for me. A session-long fight is not necessarily bad. What you need in that to make it exciting is lots of ebbs and flows. It can't just be round robin of turns, doing your damage, seeing if you hit, waiting for your next turn. You really need a lot of variation in a session-long combat to make it worthwhile, which means the environment needs to change. The foes need to sort of dynamically change and adapt. The players need to. It gets a little bit more interesting. Now, I think you can do that as you level up. The players will level 4th level. They level to level 5 at the end of this combat. But the thing that gave them, by the time you're level 4, you can actually do a little bit of trading. It takes a little while now to kill some player characters at level 4, especially at level 5 and above. But so you can actually afford a little dynamic nature to that combat. So that was really, really key for me, was having that dynamic piece. So anyway, what had happened was the players, one of the players' wizards had cast this Tasha's Hideous Laughter on the giant Jarl that was fighting off this because I think 1 or 2 rounds where the players were just terrified. I mean, the characters might have been too, but the players were like, "Oh my God, I had communicated this effectively with this just massive woolly rhino charging with a giant on it, and they could feel the earth trembling, and all of that description worked very well for me. The hammer coming out of nowhere knocks somebody off their mount on the first strike. The other player scrambling to try to recover from that and not lose the scenario. But having a couple rounds where the giant was sort of charging past them and taking this mounted swipe at them as it goes by, really, really super effective. And the thing about the mounted combat in this is the way I designed the rules, again, you can check them out on optionalrule.com, is it mostly just adds mobility to the character using it, which is exactly, they couldn't quite get to them. They felt like they couldn't control the battlefield. That's really what we wanted to get across. I didn't want to up his power level. I didn't want to give him extra attacks necessarily, because at the end of the day, it's just the abilities of 2 creatures, a woolly rhino and this giant, working together. But it wasn't like he had extra damage. It wasn't like anything. It was that his mobility on the battlefield really limited their ability to respond, or at least coordinate their response. One of the other things was that since it had an eagle companion, I think in the second round of combat, the eagle, unseen by the players in its first round, swoops down. It's a giant eagle, by the way. Swoops down, grapples one of the player characters, and flies off with them. Successfully grapples and flies off with them. So just like starting the combat with a hammer coming out of these dark woods, crackling with thunderous energy, hitting a player character, exploding with a thunderous smite, by the way. The player character being knocked off their mount, a second player character having this eagle swoop down and kind of grab them up and take them into the sky. There were so many things happening that all of the players had something that they can personally focus on. Worked super, super well. The wizard lands a Hideous Laughter on the Jarl 1 or 2, maybe 2 rounds into the combat. They fail their save. They fall off the mount laughing, which was a great use for that spell. That spell ended up holding for 4 rounds, 3 rounds, something like that. Some crazy thing where it was perfect. It sectioned out the Jarl, so he's on the ground laughing while the players are focusing on the woolly rhino and trying to take it out. Epic combat, go back and forth, some people get hurt. The barbarian player character with a massive amount of hit points has this epic kill of the woolly rhino just in the round that the giant wakes up, successfully makes his save against Hideous Laughter. Now they start combat with the giant. In the meantime, so there's so many things. So all right, I have a rule. I have a published set of rules I put on the blog a month or 2 ago called Thrilling Heroics, where I allow people to get extra action. Excuse me. Sorry about that. Get extra actions by offering some sort of trade. So this is where you should allow things to happen. So another piece of observation about the design of 5e. I was having and I would love to hear your thoughts on this, by the way. So if you have thoughts, please drop them down in the comments. But I think a much lamented piece of the design of 5e is this feeling like there aren't a lot of options besides your class abilities, that there's not a lot of sort of thrilling heroics, swinging from chandeliers and all this kind of stuff that especially people used to 3rd edition would have had. And that's true. I think that's a deficit of 5th edition. So, but that doesn't mean you can't do it. It just requires a little bit more dynamic ruling and participation and ideas from the players. So what I suggested was that and I've got this blog post made about Thrilling Heroics. The players can ask for extra actions if they take some extra risk. Hey, can I do this? And if it fails, I get this negative result. So I highly suggest you adopt that as a DM and foster that, because it takes a little training. It takes a little getting used to for the player character group once they do it. But once they get used to it, it actually becomes a vital part to your game, because players are now negotiating with you rather than asking for more, right? That asking for more thing I hate as a DM. Other DMs are okay with it, but I prefer a world where the players are trying to up the ante. It's like playing a game of poker where they're trying to put some, listen, this is my bet. This is what I'm willing to risk to get this benefit. And I'm going to roll the dice to see how it comes out. I like that because I can be surprised as the DM. The player can be surprised. The player is actively engaged in sort of what could go wrong, right? So they're thinking about, well, what's the risk of this scenario? And then they have this pause, this moment of, okay, I made this deal. I'm going to make this roll. I know this bad thing can happen to me if I don't succeed. And there's this great sense of elation when the player succeeds in that type of environment. So how does this map to the game? And you can check that out on optionalrules.com. How does this map to the game? In the sense of the game, what happened was I keep looking over to myself on camera. It's very distracting. I am so ugly. It's very distracting. So what the advice for the game? So in this case, what happened was the player who was snatched up by the eagle and flying away, he decided, what if I don't try to escape the grapple? What if I don't try to do other things? He wanted to see if he could sort of control, instead of doing a counter grapple or any of sort of the other dry systematic things, he wanted to use his animal handling to sort of as an opposed grapple check to try to get control of the eagle. Scored some crazy great roll. So we rule, instead of the eagle flying off with him, he mounts the eagle, takes the rope he had in his hand because he previously tried to trip the rhino mount, which was really cool, but it didn't work out. He tried to do an Empire Strikes Back where he wrapped up the legs of the woolly rhino, but it didn't work out. So he had like this broken. He already narratively had this broken half of a rope in his hand. So he like whips the rope around the front of this eagle and rides it, controls it. It was a fantastic roll, and he crashes it into a tree to kill the eagle, which succeeded. The damage succeeded, takes the eagle out. It was an amazing move. I mean, the guy gets snatched up, wrestles with the eagle, takes a little damage, gets on top of it, takes the rope, wraps it around its face, and then flies it into the side of a tree to try to get back to the combat. You could never have had that if you stuck super close to the rules, right? And did actions, just whatever action options you have. This is a really great example. And the risk being obviously that they're going to fall, right? They're immediately going to fall, that they're not going to take their attack actions. I'll lose my attack action by taking this attempt to do the animal control. I'm not going to break free from the grapple. It'll automatically keep me. That's what it was. That's what he was sacrificing in the meantime. So, man, it just worked out better than I can possibly imagine. And boy, what a great action. I'm 2 weeks later, I'm still like, wow, that was really fantastic. And after the game, the players were talking about it in Discord, talking about it to each other, talking about it in Zoom where we were doing this online game. It was a really great moment. And we've had several of those. I mentioned already the there's no extra action. We're using the theater of the mind. That's another, I have switched to that for the last 2 sessions. So let me talk a little bit about that and give you my experience with that, and I'd love to hear yours as well. And I'm specifically going to talk about things I've gotten out of this that I didn't get out of battle mat type games. So I had a players have gone now. One of the players is having their kitchen redone, so they're at some temporary lodging while they're having that redone, and they're not able to really access a great computer. So they're just able to join via iPhone or something like that. And so we're just doing theater to the mind because it's the least common denominator. I've done some of it before, but I really leaned into it. I thought, let me give this a really, I've been using battle mats so much because I use a VTT, and you can see right here, this is Foundry VTT, by the way. I leaned into it and I tried to get into real descriptive language. And what Theater of the Mind does, one of the advantages of it, is that it shifts players away from the map. The map can be descriptive. It gives you an image of what's there and what isn't there. But what the map also does, and nobody appreciates this, is it limits players' thinking to only what they see on the map. They don't think more expansively about the narrative description of the setting that they're in. They don't think, well, geez, might this be there? They don't start to wonder if a set piece might be in the scene if it's not on the map. So they're really just like, okay, if I see it, I can use it. If I don't see it, I'm not going to think about it. So they're not challenging their mind to think about options. And with theater of the mind, and we've had this play out this exact same way in several sessions now, using it. The players were asking about, well, is there a rocky outcropping? I can attempt an athletics check to scramble up to see if I can get out of the way of this charging rhino. Is there some cover I can use? Can I use a tree that's in the way to crash the eagle into it where there might not have been a tree on the battle map? All these kinds of things really worked out extremely well. Plus distances. I wasn't counting out 5 feet at a time. Like it would have been a sort of a pain in the butt to do the rhino turning around, charging players. Everybody would have counted squares to where they are to figure out, can this rhino make it to them in the next round? It would have created a different, more tactical thinking, which isn't bad, but instead it kept players focused on the danger instead of the movement, a specific 5 feet of movement. And that abstraction, that kept players focused on the action happening instead of tediously moving icons and tokens around a battle map. Now, that doesn't mean I'll never use battle maps again, but I'm just saying it was a significant effect. Battle maps don't leave negative spaces, right? That negative space, or what in a gaming sense, is what the player's imagination can fill in that the DMs have not described, because it's impossible to describe everything. A map gives you the illusion that everything has been described, where there might be something else. Players just don't think to ask. But in theater of the mind, players think to ask for additional things in the environment, and that creates a much more dynamic experience for the players. Therefore, again, so it led to this whole session, 3-hour-long combat. The players were more engaged because they were trying to think of what else can I think of is in the environment. Having a DM that works with them in this is a big help. So that's one of the pieces of advice there. I don't know if I'm already 20 minutes into this. I don't know if I'm going to get to designing next week, but I'll set it up in the last part of the show. So let's get to the TPK and what sort of happened there. So I don't want to do the whole description, but what happened, but in summary, what happened was every other player character was knocked out by this Jarl fighting off against them. He was significantly wounded, but he now gets down to the last player, this barbarian character who has by far, I think, twice the hit points of everybody else in the game, plus damage resistance. But this person is severely wounded, uses thunderous smite one more time the giant does from his hammer, knocks the player down, has them on the ground at advantage, is going to just wipe them out with his last thing. I thought here, I was at the point where everybody was at the point, oh, wow, we've got a TPK. And I was like that. I was like, wow, we've got a TPK. If you're I'm like a lot of game masters. If I can think of a legitimate way out, I hate TPKs. I want the players to win. I don't like killing player characters. I've done it, but only a handful of times. But if you don't allow death, if you're not actually willing to let a player character die, you're hurting your game. What is a player really, in my opinion, everybody has different styles. In my style, if you're not willing to let the bad thing happen, what's the danger here? Why don't you just get together, throw out a scenario, and let someone tell you the dope way that they unravel that knot, right? Unless you can have failure, it's really difficult to feel good about your success. So I was going to let it happen, but here's my line. I'm not going to let it happen without a fight. So if you've given me any out, my spicy heck boy mug, by the way, boop, 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 and my NPC energy shirt, which I love. If you give me any way out as a game master, I'm going to take it. If it's legit. So the way this got around, so many game masters would have been inclined to intervene with something new. Have an NPC show up that wasn't there, which I'll get to. I did have an NPC show up, but they were there. Or something like that. And I didn't. I was tempted to. There was a moment where I was even tempted to go, okay, guys, listen, I made this encounter too hard. I'm not going to kill you. Let's just back out of it. I had a few moments where I thought I was going to do that. And I'm so glad I didn't, because they ended up winning in the most player-driven way possible without it breaking the integrity of the game. What ended up happening was the every player was making death saves. So several rounds of this went by. Every player, I had the ranger had failed his third death save, so he had died. The one with the eagle. I had two other players had failed two death saves. They're about to fail their third. I just know it. And we did rewind some stuff. So previous session, every player had gotten 10 temporary hit points. I asked them, did you guys remember to put your 10 temporary hit points? They had not remembered to put that. And I was very frustrated, a little bit frustrated at the players, but I'm not going to kill them because they forgot on this complex interface to add 10 hit points. So I told the one give I gave to the characters was, okay, Ranger, you didn't fail your third death save since you forgot to add your 10 hit points, because he actually still would have been conscious from the thing to put him out. I just said you're stabilized and we go. So that was the one give. Hopefully they're not remembering that. But the other one was there was an NPC artificer that I had said from the previous rounds that was with him hiding in the trees the whole time. This was not a combatant. I had already established that. I said to the players of their role, the NPC in the woods, I'm going to give him one roll, a saving throw to see if he's brave enough to do anything. And I rolled a 20, and I rolled right in front of the characters. So they knew this was legit. I wasn't just giving it to them. So they're like, oh my God. So the other two characters wake up as this artificer heals them with a healing word. And the one character who's the paladin, she took the charger feat previous to this, which means you get to attack at the end of a dash. And that's it. So they stood up. They wouldn't have had the movement to get to this Jarl normally, but because they had the charger feat, and only because they had the charger feat, they were able to stand up, do a dash, make an attack, which they made. They hit with their attack, and they do their big giant smite. So, and it took the Jarl out, and it was this applause moment at the table. So all of these things. Now, it could have gone a million different ways, but it didn't. And if I had intervened as a game master, none of that would have had the option to play out. This person's charger feat wouldn't have been the perfect choice for this one perfect scenario to lead to this one thing. If I had intervened on the eagle, the player character wouldn't have had their chance to control it and crash it to a tree. I did intervene on the death of the ranger, but they had forgotten something. I'm not going to kill a player character. If we forget 2 sessions later, if we had remembered it 2 sessions later, I would have been, okay, nope, well, too late. We should have thought of it in the session. But if we can think about it in the session, like within that 15 minutes of, oh, hey, I forgot this thing that we already had, I'm not letting a player character die for that. I'm not letting a player character die for a big out of character mistake. That's just not going to happen. So I don't feel bad about that at all. But letting other things play out, super, super important. The players had chosen and gone through a lot of in-character effort to rescue this artificer that ended up saving them. I had someone on Twitter accuse me of that being Deus Ex Machina. It is not. If the player characters have dumped a ton of time into rescuing an NPC, and they have the NPC with them right there, and this NPC was hiding 20 feet away, having them take an action is not unreasonable. As a matter of fact, it's paying off the character's previous behaviors. So, wow, there's a lot there. So anyway, all of this played off perfectly. So let me get to my last half hour here. Actually, let's start designing forward stuff, because I could use some ideas on where we want to go. First of all, this is the first order problem all DMs have. I have no idea where the players are going to go from here. They may try to take this device that they came out here for the first place for, and go back to their patron and turn it in. They said at the end of last, I do know that they want to explore this longhouse of this Jarl they just killed. So I want to add a little bit more to that. That's where I think we're going, but I'm not 100% sure. Because they even talked about making it their player character headquarters, which I hadn't thought that they wanted to do. But if they want to do that, actually, I want to dump more oomph into this. But I've got nothing. I haven't thought about it. The only things that I know, by the way, I use Return of the Lazy Dungeon Master's Lazy DM prep method. I'm not going to go into that, but I basically list out potential scenes, secret includes, blah, blah, blah. So Let's talk about the pieces here. Talk about how to make them interesting, and with an eye towards how do I draw this towards the end of the module. We're about 2/3 of the way through this module now, roughly. So now I'm looking to how do we wrap it up. I'm running Rime and the Frostmaiden. I've significantly modified it, but one of the problems with Rime and the Frostmaiden, which I like as a module, but one of the problems is it's sort of a IKEA furniture of modules. There's a lot of missing pieces. There's a lot of connections you have to make. There's a lot of work the DM has to do to make the module rich, to make it meaningful, and more specifically, to give a reason and connect pieces of the module. One of the big, at least as I see it, and if you think differently, I'd love to hear your thoughts here. But one of the big missing pieces of this module is, why do the player characters go to the last piece of it? The setup is that Oriel, the goddess of winter, is locked Icewind Dale into a everlasting frost. No real reason given in the module. I've invented a reason that she's trying to create a convergence of the planes, the ice planes, so that she can create her own little pocket dimension that she rolls. So that was my ad, but now you have to get to the place where the players undo that. In the module, there's an island she's living on that the players go out to, but there's no reason given for the play. Like this is one of the odder parts of the module, is that the big MacGuffin in this is Oriel and her terror, and kind of at some point in the module, the players reach a certain level, and for some unknown reason decide to go to her island to end the long winter. Now, there's a good reason to want it to end, but there's no real buildup in the module to get them to the point of realizing, oh, I can take on a goddess. First of all, there's a concrete reason for me to go there, and there's a concrete thing I can do once I get there. There's nothing that teases why the players would go there. Just magically they decide to go. That really rubs me the wrong way, just design-wise. Plus, I just need to chart a path to it that the players' characters can see themselves doing this. And that's what I want to come up with. So what I need out of this MacGuffin, and I'm going to try to create a secret and clue. What I need is the Frostmaiden is using something called this Great Rime, which again is not really well defined. The module is titled this, but it doesn't tell you what it is, why it's important, or what utility it has to the player characters other than a neat name. She uses this spell called the Rime every night to go out, every night she goes out, cast it on Icewind Dale. In the module, you can kind of kill the mount that she uses to do it, which interrupts the spell and undoes it. But it's a weak solution to the module, because she can just get another animal and start it all over again a couple years later. It's not very satisfying. So what I want out of this, let me just cut to the chase. What I want out of this is, I want them to realize there's something they can take from the Frostmaiden. Two things. I want them, and I have a note for this. So what do I want out of this module? What do I want out of this session? This is last session. I got a good that hammer that we talked about. Liger's ability to reroll hit points. That's true. Set the stage that this great winter can be undone. That's what I want out of this. So there's a couple of, let me add a thing for potential player home base. Let me, Liger's hit points in a second. That's a GM give. He's the ranger that I saved. One of the reasons he went down is he has horrible hit points. The players have chosen to roll hit points for all of their characters here. He has rolled horribly every time. I let them re-roll ones, but they have to keep twos. He's rolled a number of twos. Yeah, it's rough, to the point that as a GM, I'm like, oh, listen, guy, this is bad. So I want to create a MacGuffin that they can go in and basically re-roll their hit points. So one of the things I've already said that they saw when they were at this longhouse for the Jarl is that there is a shrine there. That's one of the things I use Pinterest, by the way, for pictures. So I've been looking for labyrinths. I said that there's this labyrinth at the outside the Jarl's longhouse that has some like a deep mystical property to it. And I've already given away the MacGuffin that they can basically, someone who chooses to walk the labyrinth can choose to re-roll their hit points if they want. So he knows that this is out there for him. I just wanted to tease it. Why bury the lead, right? So I'm just looking for a nice little magical feature for this. And that's what Pinterest is being used for. I want to look for some sort of artwork I can throw down, but like Winterlock Labyrinths, not a lot of pictures like that. So love this little picture, by the way. This is really great. So yeah, I'm going to find something here. I don't know. Maybe it looks like this. Maybe. I don't know. I'll figure something out. But anyway, I want to put more lore or dress it up with more lore. But what I want is just the function is the player. Ooh, this is great. Look at this. That kind of looks whitish. Kind of. Yeah, that's great. Anyway, I'll create something for the players where they can walk it and re-roll their hit points. Now, I want to pack more lore around this and create a little bit, since they're going to investigate this giantish location, I want to make it more of an exploration pillar. I want to give them something interesting to find out, that if they spend time investigating, they can get an understanding of the lore, but also get some items that they might want to use to improve their character. So why is this location important? So some of the secrets includes potential base for the poem player. So what do I want secrets and clues wise? I put a note for myself. The labyrinth is a pathway, question mark. I don't know when I'm going to do this, but what I think I'm going to do is I've been looking up the planes. There is a plane called Ysgard. That is one of the cosmology of the Forgotten Realms. I think I'm going to say that this is a pathway to Ysgard. That the labyrinth, that this whole gorge is a magical labyrinth. So I love this idea of these veils between planes, and that the guardians of these veils reap a lot of benefit to serving the intention of that location. But they can also shift it, like change the nature of it. Like a pathway to the Shadowfell might be, if an evil person is controlling it, this might be, you might get evil Shadowfell creatures being more likely to aggregate around it, and a pathway to that they might cut a power deal with them. It's almost like a warlock, where they're able to get servants to do what they want in that area because of their support for the evil agenda. But likewise, even you can have a good character, even in the case of the Shadowfell. The Shadowfell isn't evil necessarily, although evil hangs around there. The Shadowfell could be about passing. It could be about rest. It could be about being at peace, like a healthy takes on death and so forth. That it's a passage and not a loss. So I want something similar here. Ysgard is chaotic good leaning towards chaotic neutral. So it's really focused on sort of battle. It's focused on personal independence and things like that. And that's what I think I want out of this. So the labyrinth is a pathway to Ysgard. I have something in here about the animals. The Jarl is named a guardian of the pathway. That creates a potential adventure. So here I am. How much adventure do I want to put into this location? It'd be cool to have some sort of being or some sort of connection on the other side that did two things. One, I'd already set up that the Jarl was a huntsman, that the Jarl was hunting humanoids and creatures, and he created trophies. He's sort of a trophy hunter, so there's dozens and dozens and dozens of them. I already created a MacGuffin for the hammer that they have, that attunement requires the wielder to this is all in D&D Beyond, by the way. If you look for a Hammer of Thunderous Rage, you can find this. Attunement requires a wielder defeat the previous wielder in combat and stand vigil in the smoke of their funeral pyre for an evening. That's one way to attune. Alternatively, a user may attune for a period of 1 week by defeating an enemy in battle with a weapon, and must do so each week to continue the attunement. So the implication is that this Jarl actually didn't defeat the last. He found the hammer somewhere and was using this hunting thing to stay attuned to the hammer. I want to add more than that. If the players are going to bother exploring, I want to add something interesting. So exploration, again, discover something new, be interesting to the player characters, and has some asset that adds to either their story or their character power level or something like that. So I'd like to use this opportunity for the players to gain more information about Auril. I'd like to use this opportunity for them to get a home base if they want it, and for Liger to re-roll his hit points. So that's what I want out of it. So I need to seed some secrets that get to that, and I don't. So the Jarl. So if there's a being on the other side of this, it'd be great if there was a Valhalla thing, right? Like so. all of these huntsman stuff, what happens? I like this idea. If the players are able to walk the labyrinth and go to Ysig, we'll say it's like a Valhalla place, that all of the creatures hunted by the Jarl were actually now in Valhalla and participating there in some way. It is not a clear this person was just evil and inconsiderate. There was some belief driving them. So everything hunted in the hunting ground in Icewind Dale was transported to Valhalla, where they live in an ideal form, where they so that's a secret. What's the relevance to the players? Maybe they can get information. Are the creatures, so it's an awakening. Creatures are awakened and empowered. And, there's an option. I wonder if anyone thinks of this. So basically, I could have the creatures sitting around, they talk to them, and there's some lore to find out. But the other thing that would be cool, in my opinion, to set up is a rivalry to Auriel. Like, have some god behind them that is not down with Auriel, what Auriel is doing. And in fact, that's a setting in the module. Auriel, the Forgotten Realms deities have departed this realm, left the world to itself, but a couple of these deities, including Talos and and Auriel herself, have stayed here. They're mucking with things a little bit too much. Talos doesn't appreciate it. Auriel doesn't appreciate it. Well, I mean, the other gods, Auriel obviously appreciates what she's doing. So some god rivalry, this would be a good time to impart that knowledge onto the players. So creatures are awakened, empowered, and joining an army. Ooh, has some potential. An army for, let's say a Herald of Talos, because I don't want Talos himself to show up. Storm Giant? No, maybe Frost Giant. Because this is Ysgard, so that's a pretty powerful realm, and frost giants are pretty appropriate for that realm. So he gets there. What do? They get there. Creatures are awakening. Here's what I like. So I like this idea that there's an ability. The players get the information that Auriel has stolen something that lets her pull the planes closer to one another. That this is, and since it's rhyme, it should be linked to a voice. So I'll say Auriel has stolen the voice of something. Ooh, that's very folklorish. The voice of who's one of the Norns. One of the Norns. What's a Norn? I know Norns are like furies or something. The Norns. Norse mythology, a female beings who rule the destiny of gods and men. That's perfect. They roughly correspond to other controlling, such as the fates and things like that. Yes. So Auriel has stolen the voice of one of the Norns. Give me a name. Name of a Norn. Name. Name of a Norn. Vespa contains the names of 3 main Norns. Vathandri. Oh, I like that. Vathandri and Skald. Yeah, Vathandri is way better to say. I have no idea who that is. Let me see if it has any context. Norn. Says looking here. Vathandri. Oh, we're Verdandri. It's pronounced here. Yeah, this is great. Anglicanized, so yeah, this is great. To become, translated in the making, or what is happening and becoming. So it's a Norn of making. Oh, this is even better. Let me link this. Verdandi. If I need a name I can pronounce because I'm very bad at pronouncing names. All right. So the secret is Auriel has stolen the voice of Verdandri. I'm going to say Verdandri. A powerful Norn. A powerful Norn of making. That keeps the Ysgard. I don't know. what is it? It keeps Ysgard's pathways. Oh yeah, that's it. Keeps this is even better, the Bifrost Bridge. So it keeps Ysgard's pathways to other planes open, including the Bifrost Bridge. Oh, that's fantastic. So, powerful Norn. So, all right. So we know there's an external power. Maybe that is contained in a. I don't know. It's contained in an item. I'll say for now. So, this implies that if the players steal back the voice of Vidandri, that they are able to stop this reign of terror of Auriel. That gives them a concrete piece of information they need. So, what else do they need? So I need 4 more adventures. That's what I need out of this. I need to get them to 7th level because that part of the module is balanced for 7th level. So one of the other things I need is I need a couple of more moving parts. So I need a couple of requirements before they can use this so they don't go charging for the Isle and get themselves killed. That they need... Oh, this is what we'll do. So she's contained... Auriel's stolen the voice. We'll say another secret is Vidandri was sealed in an ancient item. Vidandri spirit was stolen, was imprisoned in a, I don't know, magical X recovered from the, there's an ancient culture that's part of this module. I've cut that whole piece out, but, oh, what is it? Nereth? Is that it? I forget it in Rime and the Frostmaiden. I have to look it up. I'm having a senior moment here where I can't remember the name of it. Icewind Dale, Rime and the Frostmaiden. Yes, Caves of Hunger, Doom of Running Necropolis. All right. So I'm condensing down. Oh, give me the name. Netheril. That's it. Netheril City. Netherese. Nothing from a Netherese city under the ice. Anyone who knows this module, by the way, under the ice. I'm cutting out that whole Netherese city thing. I'm ending it at the fight with Auriel because if a fight with a goddess is not the climax of the module, I don't know what is. Was imprisoned in a magical something, recovered from Netherese city under the ice. One of the Netherese spires contains a device that will destroy the magical X, and free the Norn. All right, so here, this is great. I think we're converging on something here. So there's a Netherese Spire adventure that the players have already said they're interested in going on. I probably want to make that an adventure they go on from level 6 to level 7. And have some interspersed adventures between level 5. They just hit level 5, so they need two adventures to go on to hit level 6, 2 adventures to go on to hit level 7, and then they go face Auriel. So the two, I mean, I'll figure them out, but I need things that they want, that they make them choose to want to go. So that's one of them. I have this other plot line with the Arcane Brotherhood out there causing trouble and wanting to get a hold of these devices themselves. So I want a collision between the player characters and the Arcane Brotherhood, level 5 to level 6. I want level 6 to level 7 being about recovering this item, but maybe I push the collision. Maybe I push the final fight with the Arcane Brotherhood off onto that, which I think I will. It'd be great to have a final fight. I don't know. I'll have to figure it out another time. I just need this next session. So these are great secrets. This is what they're going to discover here. This is probably enough to get me through that session. And then next session, I'll deal with discovering more about the Arcane Brotherhood. So what's another secret? Another secret is that Arcane Brotherhood, and there's a specific member here. I have to get their name in a second, but there's this great albino tiefling with appendix A's character sheets. Rime the Frostmaiden. Where's my creatures? There we go. Creatures. There's a member of the Arcane Brotherhood with vampire kobolds with them. Here they are, right here. Avarice. There we go. Oh, it's gargoyles. There's a different one with the vampire kobolds. So they're basically looking for this Netherese item. They're going to block the player somehow. I haven't figured out yet, but all I really need for this next module, I only have to stay one chapter ahead of your players typically. So Avarice, we will say, has been to guard looking for at the question mark. So there'll be one item here that I think would be interesting that the Arcane Brotherhood, so the players can question somebody in this other plane. How do they get here? They walk that labyrinth that Liger's going to walk to get his hit points. They're going to discover that connects to Valhalla. They're going to discover some of the creatures there, talk to some of the sages. They're going to talk to a frost giant that is master of that region. So the frost giant will come out later. But the allies basically are that they want to stop Auril too because they don't need another frost realm. That this is pulling their own realm close to the prime material plane and damaging it. They don't want that. So it's going to impart some information onto the player characters about the Norn that was stolen. They want their Norn back. So this is going to give them information that they hadn't had before. And then the adventure launches here to where I'll create some other MacGuffin. There's a couple of encounters that I think I have the encounters that I want for the last bit of this module, which is this is very modular and I want to tie them together. So there's a piece where they go to a prison to investigate a member of an old member of the Arcane Brotherhood to get more information about what they're doing. There is items that can be combined. That's what I want. So, all right. So what am I looking at? So Avarice has been to Ysgard, stolen an item that when combined with the original, with this Netherese artifact that they're going to have to get it later, imprisons, transfers the soul of the Norn. So they want to keep the soul imprisoned. They want to keep it for themselves. All right, so that's the crux of the end of this module and what the tension is. So what I've set up, and I want to make a note for myself here, up above. The tension is the player characters are going to realize that this Norn's voice stolen by Auril is what's causing all the planes to move. And the tension is between them, who want to basically set the Norn free to end this winter and end Auril's grip on the area. It also restore Ysgard. Between them and the Arcane Brotherhood, who wants to actually get this Norn soul for themselves and use it for the nefarious purposes. They can use it for lots of other things. I guess alternatively, players could choose to steal it themselves. They probably won't, but that should be an option. You should always leave it up, things open for what the players want to do. But so the central tension between these three entities are Auril wants to keep doing what she's doing and kill people, basically. Arcane Brotherhood wants to get that power to do with it what they want to do. And the player characters, I don't know, set the Norn free, stop Auril, do something else like that. So that now I'm setting up the central tension. So the encounters that I've got in mind that I want to use here are, and I just need to create a pathway now for the rest of it. So let me bring up, actually, before the end of the show, why am I charting a pathway here? I'm trying to get to the end of it here. This is the practical DM concern. Ending modules, ending adventures is a very difficult thing. First of all, you have to hold the group together long enough to get to that end of it. I'm pretty good at holding games together, but I recognize a year is about as much as a a party can hold together. Now, sometimes they continue to play and people will play together for years, but that stable form of that same party without one person having to leave and go do something in life, or just get bored and be ready for a different game or whatever. My experience is about a year is about as long as that lasts. Now, I don't think we're going to make a year. September would be a year. I think we have 3 more months left, and I'll tell you why. 2 big reasons. One of the players in the game, they just found out their wife is pregnant, or they found out last month, which is great news. But it's unreasonable to think that player is going to have options to continue to play, especially as that pregnancy gets towards its end. So I think we need to wrap it up at least 2 months, maybe 3 months before. So that puts us in August, June, May. I need to try to wrap this up in May. So that gives me about 4 sessions with an end to get to. I might be pushing it, but I've got about till May. I've got about 12 weeks, 12 more sessions left of me. We've gotten 19. I think we can hit that reasonably. We're probably going to hit 10 sessions, right? We'll miss 2 between now and then. So that's one factor. The other is the pandemic. Nobody knows what is going to happen in the future in this pandemic, but the way human behavior works is, I believe, we are going to get to a point a couple months from now. Most people are vaccinated, and whether it's reasonable or not, I'm not trying to get into that discussion. People are going to take a shot at trying to get face-to-face games going again. This group is in my area, but I don't think we're going to get together for face-to-face games. Lots of reasons. We're just a little bit too far apart from one another, and a few things like that. So I think in about 3 months, we're going to have this convergence of events where one player character's getting ready to get out for their baby. The other player characters are sort of itching to get out and play live games again. And I think we're just going to end up with lots of difficulty. So to me, I want to target 3 months as a place to basically wrap this campaign up. That'll be good. We'll be at about 9 to 10 months of actual playing. That's a great game. No shade there. I think it's great. I will say I've not used about half of this module, which is interesting. Like I'm going to wrap it at chapter 5. There are 2 more chapters here. I don't want to do them because, again, Fight with the Goddess should be the climax of a module. There's a couple of these module things from 2. We're still in chapter 2. I'm not going to do chapter 3 because I've cut out this entire Duragar plot line. I want to do this Cackling Chasm. I'm tempted to do the Caves of the Berserkers. I want to do the Dark Duchess. Oh boy, that doesn't leave me a lot. I'm not going to be able to do this prison one. And I'm going to do Lost Spire of Netheril. That's it. Those are my 4. Those are the 4 I want to fit in. Only because Cackling Chasm is great. It's got these Knoll vampires. Woo, it's great. Cave of the Berserkers, also really great. I'm going to tie that to so I have to figure out some way to tie this Cave of the Berserkers to this Norn plotline. Great options there. This Dark Duchess, which is this lost ship, I'm going to have some MacGuffin out with the Arcane Brotherhood, has some information stored there, like a member died on that voyage and it's now locked in ice. The players are going to have to go out to find that. And then Lost Spire of Netheril, I want that to be the last adventure where the Arcane Brotherhood and the player characters fight it out for the recovery of this important item of Netheril origin that's going to allow them to either capture the soul of the Norn or free it. And obviously, if the players have it, that's one outcome. If the Arcane Brotherhood has it, if they don't kill the players, then they'll have to rush to defeat them on the island of Auril to keep them from getting this Norn thing. That'll be great. So yeah. So that's my pathway here. All right, I was all over the map today. I know we're right at the top of the hour, so right almost at 1 o'clock. But that's interesting. I have a lot more work to do because I have to figure out what the actual items are. So I have more work this week. This is basically me designing the game, my own module here. That's okay. I'm using the Adventures of Set Pieces, and I need to link them item to item to get the players to move logically between them. Set the stakes for them. But I think we can do that. I think this Lost Cave of the Berserkers, I'm likely to make that the next adventure because they're at this Jarl's place. There's going to be some way. Yeah. So what I think I'll have them do is I'll probably take, when they go to Valhalla, they'll discover these giants. There's some information that that they'll give them if the player characters does something to them, which is the spirits of some of the spirits from Valhalla have escaped to this cave of berserkers. They want them to get returned, basically. That's changing the module, but it's essentially the same thing. It's still pretty good. So if they do that, then they'll give the player characters knowledge of this additional stuff happening with O'Real. That's how they'll get the information. So I think it'll be good. It'll be a nice little set of adventures to go on next. Okay, that's it. I think we're good. All right, I'm going to wrap it up here today. I appreciate you joining me. Thank you so much, everybody, if you joined this session. This was a little bit of a rambling session, but there's a lot of theory crafting in here, things that you need to do and why. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you will get out, and I hope you will run some great games of your own. I've enjoyed D&D for 40 years. I hope you continue to do it. I am looking forward to next week when I'll update you on how all of this crazy stuff worked out. We're at a lot of players' choices time, so I don't know which way they're going to go, and I hope they choose one of these ways, or I'll make it up as they go along if they don't go that way. But I think there's a lot of potential here. I really appreciate you joining me. Go ahead and give me a like, a follow on all of these videos. I hope you'll subscribe, thumbs up. I'm a super small streamer, so I hope you'll take the moment to do all those like things. It really helps this stream out. I would really appreciate it. And really, I hope you'll go ahead and give me a follow on Twitter and engage me in conversation there. If you have a comment, an observation, a suggestion of your own, something you just want to talk out, I'd really try to approach a good, positive, focused conversation there. So I hope you'll join me there. So I'm Optional Rule on Twitter, Optional Rule on Twitch, Optional Rule on YouTube, all of the places, Instagram, those things, like, follow, subscribe. I really appreciate it. Don't have a Patreon. I have a Ko-Fi. If you want to go ahead and drop $1 there, I really don't care. I'm not doing this for money. This is a hobby for me. So I really appreciate you joining me today. So thank you. Hope you join me next week as I do this every week to design some good D&D content, talking about blog posts that are coming up. Check things out on the website. I'm all over the map today. Sorry, just one of those sessions. All right. Thank you, everybody, for joining me today. I appreciate it. Like, subscribe, follow, all the things. Remember, until next week, fun is not optional. Thank you, Bree. Take care.